What the hell happened to the Packers last night? Let me tell you, there is one person to blame. The NBA in-season tournament was a monster success, drawing higher ratings at this time of year than they have seen in over 20 years. But what is the NBA about to do to make it even better? And it tis the season to be jolly, you might say, but it actually tis the season for college football free agency once again to ruin what once was a sacred sport, and we're going to tell you why, coming up right now on Sports Talk with Dad. Welcome back to another amazing episode of Sports Talk with Dad. As always, my name is Kyle, and I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who is the tale as old as time, my dad, Tim.
Just because it was my birthday yesterday doesn't mean you can do that.
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah. By the way, thanks for the meerkat. I love that.
You're very welcome. I thought it fit you very well. You know, a red hat on somebody playing golf. It reminded me of something else that reminded me of you. I thought it fit.
All I know is Jack loves meerkats. He showed me a baby meerkat, which makes me want one now.
Baby meerkats, and you can see them here, have to be the cutest animals to ever walk the
They
planet.
would destroy your house, but they are very...
Yeah, they're not allowed in the house. I don't even want the dog we have allowed in this house. Definitely not a meerkat. Thanks again for that. But yeah, it was your birthday.
Yes, it was.
You are officially the tale as old as time.
Not quite.
And you're not the beauty one either.
No.
I just hear Angela Lansbury playing in the background. Tale as old as time. That was really bad.
Can we let her sing?
Yeah. We'll leave it to her. We will leave it to her. But I am mad at you.
Why? Yes.
You
knowing the answer.
did what I asked you not to do.
You actually begged.
I begged on the last show. I said, please don't pick the Packers. Please don't pick the Packers, because anytime you pick the Packers, they lose. And you're like, you're being stupid. That's not how life works. And so you picked the Packers. And what happened?
Their coaching screwed up a game again.
Failed the team. You failed them.
I didn't fail them.
Failed the Green Bay Packers. Really?
Okay, I do want to say something about that debacle last night.
I do too, but first, before we get into that, I want to make my point here, because you don't believe me, and so I want to go through the schedule since the Detroit Lion game on the Thursday night back on September 28th. We both picked the Lions. Well, I picked the Packers. You picked the Lions to win, and the Lions won. Since then, the Packers played the Raiders. You picked the Packers. What happened?
Raiders won.
They lost. Packers Broncos. You picked the Packers. What happened? Packers lost. Packers Vikings.
Okay, we're not going through
what
all the
happened?
games.
The Packers lost. You picked the Rams versus the Packers to win, and the Packers won. You picked the Packers to beat the Steelers. Packers lost. You picked the Chargers to beat the Packers won. You picked the Lions to beat the Packers won. You picked the Chiefs to beat the Packers won. I saw the trend last week, and I begged you.
You know what?
Please, you must pick the Giants.
You know what this is telling you?
You suck.
Besides that, it's also telling you, bet what I don't bet on the Packer game.
It's very, very fair. If you are betting on any of our conversations here, one, shame on you. You should know better at this point. And two, bet against his pick on the Packers, because you picked the Packers last night.
It's an amazing run.
What the hell happened to that team? You saw a team the last 3 weeks that had rattled off 3 wins in a row against quality teams. Bad defenses, but you go against a Giants team that doesn't have a good offense, it doesn't have a good defense. They are playing Tommy DeVito, an undrafted quarterback, and Jordan Love looked like trash.
Hold on. I've been harsh on Jordan Love for a long time.
Yes, you have. Shame on you.
I'm not down on him. I want him to succeed. However, he's got to prove some things to me before I'm going to give him a huge contract. Last night, he looked what he is, a rookie. Rookies are going to have up and down. It's a roller coaster ride with them. But when the game was on the line, when he had to take the team down the field, he did it. He made some amazing passes.
He did.
he had another guy wider open on that last touchdown pass, but
Touchdown.
Yeah. But he played very well down the stretch. What failed the Packers last night was not Jordan Love. It was a game, even though they played badly, they should have won, which is what good teams do.
It kind of was Jordan Love.
With the turnovers, fine. It's going to happen with a young quarterback.
Underthrowing a receiver that was open by 20 yards and throwing it to a Giants player.
Again, it's going to happen with a young quarterback. What have I always said about Jordan Love? I don't trust him throwing down the field. He either has to work on it or they've got to cut bait on him.
Yeah.
They lost last night because Matt LaFleur, which, by the way, Cowherd, who said he went from thinking he was a good coach with Aaron Rodgers to a great coach now, whatever he's smoking out west has got to stop, because Matt LaFleur has had to make a few managerial decisions.
Yeah.
Namely, Joe Barry, who he didn't want to bring in, but then panicked and had to bring in somebody.
Right.
He did, and at the end of last year, when he could have cut bait and went and got a real defensive coordinator, didn't. Yeah. Run it on back, same coaching, and guess what's happened? Joe Barry failed again last night in the last minute and 30 seconds because he got no defense and pressure on Danny freaking DeVito.
Right.
I mean, my God.
We stopped blitzing. We blitzed.
We have made three of the worst quarterbacks in the league look like the next coming of Roger Staubach.
Right.
Or Fran Tarkington, going back to my day. It could run anywhere.
Right.
The defense, with the talent the Packers have, I would love to see Brian Flores coaching that defense.
He should have been our defense coordinator. He's available. We could have hired him.
Yes, we could have.
Instead, we're going to run it back with a shitty defense. I don't know.
Not a shitty defense. A shitty defensive coach, because the players on that team, there's a lot of talent on that team.
A lot of talent.
With the right defensive coordinator, DeVito doesn't get 20 yards last night.
Nope.
When you've got a quarterback coming in that's new and young, you make him beat you with his arm. You don't give him every opportunity to destroy you with his legs, which they did.
Yep.
Same thing happened in Atlanta.
Yep.
It's just insane.
Oh, that one you picked the Packers too, by the way, and they also lost that game. Just to throw it out there. Stop picking for the Packers, please. Anyway, yes. Well, here's the issue I have. If we run that stupid reverse to Jaden Reed or Christian Watson again, I'm going to knock down the TV from the wall.
What's the definition of insanity?
Trying the same things over and over and over again, hoping that it works.
Not the exact quote, but basically, yeah.
But that is the definition of Matt LaFleur. This reverse doesn't work ever, so let's run it with the same scheme, with the same positions, and just telegraph that this play is coming.
Over and over and over. And what have I always told you? It's a Barry Alvarez phrase. When you go to trick plays, the other team owns you.
Right.
What happened on the flea flicker?
He underthrew the person by 30 yards?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened. Let me say one thing. I am the defender of Jordan Love, and I am the defender of him being the next Hall of Fame quarterback in Green Bay. And I do think this was just a bad game. But there is one thing that makes me really nervous, is that Jordan Love showed last night when he starts bad, it ends bad. Now, he came back towards the end and really drove it and showed me, okay, this is the fire. He took control and drove it down the field and audibled out of a lot of plays, if you noticed, and told his coach, I'm not listening to you anymore,
right,
which was great. But if you look at it early in the game, he just was, his spiral was gone, his zip was gone, he wasn't staying in the pocket, and he had time. The pressure wasn't terrible. Like, he could have easily stayed in the pocket like he's done in the past. So that was a mental game for Jordan Love, and Jordan Love lost a tough mental game.
His footwork has never been good. He's watched.
That's not true.
It's not. It is true. He's not good enough to be able to throw on one toe.
Well, of course he's not.
He's got to plant that back foot, and he's got to throw the ball quicker. There was a couple times last night where the receiver was open. If he would have just fired it instead of taking a little hop step.
All right, I'm going to defend one thing. Do you know how many quarterbacks in the history of the NFL were good enough to throw off of one toe?
2.
1. Even Brett Favre planted his foot before he fired the ball.
Occasionally, he would have one toe. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is the greatest player
I mean, there is one.
He's the best player of all time. He's not the GOAT, but he is the best because he can do things that nobody else could.
Correct. I mean, they would have never lost a Super Bowl had Aaron Rodgers been on the Patriots. I mean, period.
Yeah.
He is that good of a player, and he's going to come back and win a Super Bowl for the Jets. That's going to happen, especially once Devontae Adams is there next year, which I think is going to happen, which is a conversation we might get into later. But if you look at that, here's the issue, though. You see Jordan Love, who has had trouble in the past with in between the ears when things get tough,
sure.
Right? And this is all on one person. One person is at fault for all of this, and that is Matt LaFleur. When you have a quarterback that you know struggles between the ears, and the only time that he actually starts to feel confident is when he stops listening to his head coach and starts calling his own plays, that's a problem.
It's a huge
Jordan
problem.
Love is not, or Matt LaFleur, is not only not a great coach, he is hurting the Green Bay Packers. He can't make those administrative choices, as you said, sorry about that, as you said. He can't. He should have fired Joe Barry. He had Brian Flores right there, and look what he's doing for the Vikings right now.
With nothing.
That is not a good defense. That is a weakness on that team, and they held the Raiders with Devontae Adams on that team to 0 points. I mean, that is absolutely amazing, and that has everything to do with Brian Flores.
Mm-hmm.
He should have been on the Green Bay Packers staff, which would make this not a Super Bowl team, but a deep playoff threat.
Yes, because the defense would have carried them.
The defense would have carried them.
It would have given Jordan Love more confidence because he would have had a really good defense to rely on.
Correct. But then if you're a head coach, why is Aaron Rodgers so mentally strong? One, because that's the person that he is, right? Two, because anytime he would feel flustered, he had Mike McCarthy sitting there calling plays designed to give him confidence. Look what Look what Mike McCarthy has done in Dallas with Dak Prescott.
He's making Dak Prescott an MVP this year.
Correct. That is a guy who is about to be shipped out of Dallas, who had turnover issues nonstop. Mike McCarthy takes over the play calling. And there were a couple of games in there where it was rocky, but what did Mike McCarthy do? He adjusted his play calling in order to make Dak more confident. He says, okay, we're going to bring CD Lamb here now on the slants, and we're just going to get these out quick.
Well,
we're going to run a full West Coast offense where Pollard's coming out the backfield. We are going to give him confidence to make that throw deep down the field, and then all of a sudden you see this deep throw from him, and it's a touchdown, and you have an MVP candidate.
He also, and the Packers have done this a couple times, but not often enough. What McCarthy has done is have Jake Ferguson almost be an outlet 10, 15 yards down the field.
It's West Coast offense.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing Belichick used to do with Gronk.
Right.
You just get him down there, and you have an easy throw. Kellen Moore, on the other hand, is doing what Matt LaFleur is doing. He's trying to make him throw a lot of long out passes.
Correct.
And Love doesn't have that ball yet.
Here's the thing. You have Mike McCarthy, who is adjusting his offense to fit his quarterback and his strengths. And you have Matt LaFleur, who can't seem to find a play besides a reverse that always loses yards to call in his playbook. Like, this guy doesn't adjust. This guy says this is going to work, it's not going to work. You're not Vince Lombardi, and you don't have the Packers offensive line from the 60s. You don't have Jim Taylor, and you don't have Paul Hornung. The sweep worked because you had the players to make the sweep work. That's how Vince Lombardi drafted. You do not have the players or the brains in your own head, Matt LaFleur, to make that reverse work. It stopped working. Adjust. Because you know what made that sweep work too? When people figured it out, that's when Bart Starr threw it to down the field.
He threw it down to Max McGee or Boyd Dollar or somebody.
Whoever was down there. Right. That is how that worked. You come and load the box to stop the sweep, and we are going to throw over your heads and make you on your toes all day long. You have a running game that works where you're pounding it down the field because you're actually learning A.J. Dillon just needs to be a mutter and get his ass between the tackles.
And Taylor looked
great too. But that's working and working and working, and you stop running the ball. Instead, you have your quarterback who doesn't throw a good deep ball, throw it 50 yards down the field and underthrow somebody 20 yards. You have not run a slant once. You have not run an outpost a single time. I've never seen a button hook run in this entire single ever. You never see a seam just up the gut from a tight end ever. You're trying to get too cute. You've learned too much from Sean McVay. Because here's the thing, Sean McVay will run simple to make his creative look good. You just want to play this creative game. Fire him. Get him the hell out of Green Bay and bring in a good coach.
There was a reason that LaFleur was the 32nd offensive 28th offense in Tennessee. Okay, fine. I'm making him worse than he apparently was. Not much.
But between the 28th and the 32nd offense, there's 2 yards.
I've asked you this question before. What would happen if Mike McCarthy, Sean Payton, take your pick,
It'd be a Super Bowl team,
was on this team with the team that they've got? They've got young talent. Yeah. The wide receiver room is pretty full. Christian Watson.
Except for Christian Watson.
They should have traded him when they could have gotten Jonathan Taylor, but he's there. I think what you're seeing on the defense, Jerry Alexander started an interview. He was having a meeting with the reporters. First thing he said was, go ahead, I'm ready to lie to you.
Well, and that's all because of Joe Barry.
Yes, because give these players some credit. They know what's going on. Alexander knows what's going on. He's being asked to do things in the secondary that really doesn't make sense.
No.
I mean, when Alexander stopped listening to him one game last year and he played man to man, he shut down
made Justin Jefferson look like a 7th round rookie.
Yes. Now, were there other things going on? Maybe. Who knows? But they won that game and they dominated. The Packers beat the Chiefs last week. Chiefs aren't the same team they were last year.
No.
So let's not get way out over our skis. They should have beat the Giants. It was a travesty that they didn't. They're a better team than that.
Nobody adjusts.
Nobody
adjusts. Can you imagine Dayball on this Packers team? If we had Dayball, who's winning with Tommy DeVito, and nothing against Tommy DeVito, he seems like a decent quarterback. He's played really well. He seems like
he's
a good kid.
He's going to be out of the league in another 2 years.
He might be, but he's making Tommy DeVito, an undrafted rookie quarterback, look like the next coming of John Elway.
Well, we saw what happened in Buffalo after he left. Josh Allen is not the same quarterback.
No. Can you imagine Dayball on this team with Jordan Love? I'm at the point where Jordan Love is not the problem here. You are not playing to the strengths. He has no confidence on his deep throw, and so you keep making him throw the deep throw. You have a running game that is working. You are driving down the field, and you don't use it to open up passes. You don't use it to run play action. Instead of running a play action after you just had a 7-yard run, instead you run a reverse. Like, what is going through your brain? You have this script for every single game. It's like, this is going to work or it's not.
Here's my fear with the Packers right now. And this is the problem with the Packers organization as a whole. Number one, they're siloed, which should never happen. LaFleur reports to Mark Murphy rather than reporting to Goody.
Yeah.
Goody also reports to Murphy. But because Murphy is being forced to retire at the end of July of next year, nothing's going to happen. They're going to bring back LaFleur. Yep. Goody will keep doing what Goody's doing. Yep. They are never building a cohesive team in the front office.
Well, look what it took for them to fire Mike Sherman.
I know.
I mean, the guy's a high school coach now, and we kept him as our GM and coach for, 8 years?
Packers should be out talking to somebody like a Harbaugh to bring him in. I mean,
100%.
And I don't think he'd ever come to Green Bay, but
Why?
You got to go and get somebody. And Murphy's got to get out of the football operation.
Correct.
He doesn't trust Goody, which is a huge problem. Goody had a good draft this last year. He drafted a couple tight ends that are doing something.
I'd like to see him pick his own coach.
He should have that right.
Yeah.
But Murphy's never going to give it to him because he thinks he has
Well, there's a new president coming soon.
That president needs to be the president of the operation and not anything to do with the football.
Mark Murphy was for a long time.
Until the Matt LaFleur hire.
Right.
Why he did one interview and hired him on the spot without ever getting Goody's input is beyond me.
I don't know.
It was the biggest disaster, and the Packers really haven't been good since then. Aaron Rodgers saw the handwriting on the wall. You put Rodgers on this team with this collection of talent, and granted, he would have had to make a mind switch going, okay, I'm going to be the big uncle, and I'm going to help grow these guys.
Yep.
He wasn't going to do that. Jordan Love's time, he's got skills. Yep. He needs a coach that can bring out the best in those skills by putting him in positions to win. Yep. LaFleur never does that. He calls this game like Kellen Moore does. Look what happened. Kellen Moore is in Los Angeles with the Chargers. They're failing. Mike McCarthy rather, is down in Dallas calling the plays, and they're excelling and they're fighting for the number 1 seed.
Now listen, Mike McCarthy's time in Green Bay, would I like him back now with the coach he is again? His time in run out, the Seattle game really messed with everybody in 2014 NFC Championship. That really messed everybody up, and they never really recovered from that. It became a sprint to get to that game rather than focusing on the game at a time. But I said last year, I saw the eye of the tiger back in that playoff game when that player was being carted off the field, and Mike McCarthy was looking straight ahead at his players, contemplating the next play. I was like, oh, yes, Mike McCarthy is back. And you see it this year. He's clearly back. If we had that type of talent and coach in Green Bay again, this team would look a lot better. This is all coaching. There is one person to blame. I said that to start the show. There is one person to blame. That person is Matt LaFleur. He is the problem.
I've said it before.
The person that created the problem is Mark Murphy.
I've said it before. Matt LaFleur has first time in a big chair syndrome. He doesn't know how to manage his personnel. And I'm talking coaching personnel. He doesn't fire them. Robert Masala, the special teams coach, has been bad. He should be gone.
Okay, listen.
He had no talent. I get it. Nixon.
This is the worst special teams talent besides Nixon we've had
and Nixon made a mistake.
13 years. And Nixon made a mistake. Like the issue with the penalties and the block in the back and all that nonsense.
All coaching.
That's coaching. And he's part of it. Don't get me wrong, but that comes from the top down. You cut the head off the fish from the top, or whatever that phrase is. I don't know. I don't even know why I tried to say it when I don't know it. What is it? The stink starts from the top. What is that phrase? What's the phrase with the fish where you cut off its head?
I got nothing. I don't know where you're going this time.
The fish cuts off a head and then the stink stops. I don't know the phrase. It's something about
sounds like you're making one up.
There's a head and the fish stinks.
You've got to.
But
I think what you're trying to say, it starts from the top. You've got to clean house on the coaching staff and bring in somebody to give a fresh look to this team, because I think there's talent enough to be a deep playoff team next year with the right coach.
Listen, these last 3 wins, Matt LaFleur was a bad coach in those 3 wins as well. Like, he just is a bad coach who is getting lucky off of some talent.
We've gotten killed, by the way. People have commented saying, LaFleur's not. He's a good coach, blah, blah, blah.
Until it gets hard.
Poke the holes in our argument, because I would defy anybody to show me how Matt LaFleur is a good coach.
When any time has gotten tough and LaFleur's been forced to be a head coach, he has failed.
He turtles.
Every single time. He is the problem. Like, Mark Murphy started this problem, and Goody has no control over the coaching staff right now. Keeping Joe Barry is a joke when we could have Brian Flores on this defense. Like, Jair wants to leave because Joe Barry's trash, and he doesn't let him play the best way he knows how to play. He's going to go to another team and be great.
Joe Barry failed twice before he got to Green Bay, and he's failing again.
Correct.
He's
not the answer. There are better answers out there, but Matt LaFleur he wants his buddies around him, and watching him jump up and down like the angry little person that he is getting on my nerves. And it's like, dude, why don't you pay attention to coaching rather than worrying about nitpicky things? He had his quarterback throw an interception, and he's yelling about some pass interference that didn't exist. Your quarterback just underthrew the person by 20 yards. Like, what are you doing complaining about some holding penalty 30 yards down the field that
there wasn't a holding on there? It was just normal bumping.
This guy's not a coach. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing, and get him the hell out of Green Bay and bring in some talent.
We vented our spleen on the tragedy that was the Packers game last night.
Spleen. I don't want to hear anything about my metaphors that fail ever again.
That's a good metaphor.
Venting your spleen? What is that, farting?
No, it's just an old saying. If I'm going to have to be called the old guy, I'm going to go with an old metaphor.
Yeah.
Anyway, you want to talk about the NBA.
Yeah, so away from garbage. The NBA in-season tournament has created the highest ratings that the NBA has seen in the past 20 years at this time of year. The highest rating is obviously Christmas Day, which we all watch Christmas Day basketball. It's great, unless football's on. And the NBA Finals. This is their highest ratings in 20 years at this time.
I didn't think it was going to be good, but I enjoyed this. I watched a lot of these games.
Yeah, the Finals head-to-head beat the Heisman Trophy ceremony. The only thing they didn't do well against was the Army-Navy game, and you're just not going to beat the Army-Navy.
Well, if it was Lakers and Bucks,
people are still going to watch Army-Navy.
They would, but I think people were disappointed with that Indiana was in that game.
I agree.
And the Bucks were upset about it too, by the way.
Yeah, well, they lost, so
yeah,
they should have won. But you saw a 44% increase of any ratings they've had this time of year in the last 40 years, and the only time you had ratings higher than this is when Michael Jordan had come back to play for the Wizards. So that's how long ago we're talking. And Michael Jordan just draws. It was his first year back in the NBA since retiring, and that's what drew it. So, I mean, you would have to go back way farther than that if you've ever had ratings like this in the middle of the year, which I don't think you have.
I don't think you do. Unless it was magic.
You've proved you have a great product. But here's the issue. It started to fall off towards the end. There was a lot of excitement. A lot of people tuned out of the finals, especially because the Lakers started to run. One thing it did do, we talked about this before, is a lot of players were playing that wouldn't normally be playing this time of year. Kawhi Leonard was one of them. He always sits out. You're seeing Dame play. You're seeing a lot of players that normally sit out. Zion Williamson was also one of them, who, by the way, needs to take his diet more seriously, and he'll probably start playing a little bit better. But here's the thing that I don't understand, okay? This tournament means nothing.
No.
It means nothing. They got a cup. They got a crop. It's a crop.
Tis they?
They got a crop.
Yes.
Right? They got a trophy, right?
Right.
But here's the issue. The only person that cares about an in-season trophy is LeBron James.
Yeah.
Which is why he won it. Because he wants to win everything. He wants to prove he's the greatest and win everything he can. He's a very competitive person.
And
Michael Jordan would have cared about it too. Probably not, actually.
Michael Jordan would have cared about the big trophy at the end of the year.
Well, and that's just it. This has nothing to do with the end of the season trophy. The players got some money, but at some point that's not going to be enough of an incentive at all, because only the winners get the incentive, right? And you're going to see more players sit out again. So what do you do to make this more meaningful?
I'm open to suggestions.
Adam Silver came out and said he's going to tweak some things. He said, I'm tired of using the word tweak, but that's what we're going to do.
You had a couple ideas that you bounced off me last night.
One of them is to give an automatic playoff berth with this tournament.
Okay. The winner of the tournament's probably going to get into the playoffs anyway.
You can't say that because a lot changes from now until the second half of the season. You always see teams that are in first place or third place or fourth place at this time of year that all of a sudden, come Christmas time when the NBA season actually starts, they're nowhere near the top of the field. In fact, they're more fighting for more ping pong balls than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not true.
It's true. I mean, who wouldn't make the playoffs of the teams that were in the finals or in the semifinals or the quarterfinals?
Pelicans.
Okay, there's one.
Pacers. They weren't in the last year.
I don't want to see the Pacers in the playoffs, but I think they're a better team than last year, and time will tell whether they'll get in there.
They will, but you're seeing teams, those two teams were not in it last year.
That's a better idea. I think if you're going to do that, you've got to expand the playoffs by 2.
The players said no. They've already expanded it by 2.
I know.
The other thing it takes away from, and I think the issue that you're going to have, and this is the argument I've seen against it, is that takes away from the play-in games that you've just created.
Exactly.
And so the other thing I thought of that you could do is an automatic entry into the NBA lottery.
And I will tell you absolutely not to that one.
Why? You're taking off playoff bid from me. Okay, so that's out. I still think that's a good idea. You automatically make them the 6th seed minimum.
Teams are going to try to job that system again. And I don't want to.
Now you're winning. And now all of a sudden, you're in the lottery, and now your focus is winning. Teams that would normally tank are now actually focused about selling tickets.
And who's generally going to win this tournament? If that's the prize at the end, it's going to be a Boston, an LA, in this case, Milwaukee, one of the better teams.
Yeah.
That's going against everything the lottery is supposed to do. The lottery was set up to let the lower teams have a chance at the number 1 or 2 pick to get a draft pick.
But what does it do, though? It's causing people to tank. That's all it's doing. You have the Detroit Pistons, who are consistently bad. You have the Pelicans, who have been consistently bad. You have the Hornets, who have been consistently bad looking for these picks. You have bad teams trading away big talent or benching people intentionally to try and get the lottery picks.
I don't think you're going to see these guys play harder to get in that pick.
You're telling me I can now build a great team and still have a chance to make my team better? That's a great idea.
I don't think it is.
I'm a star player playing for a team. Look at Damian Lillard in Portland, right? You're telling me that I can now play for Portland and actually go and because Portland was a mediocre team, right?
Yeah.
That's all they ever were. And what does a mediocre 8 seed team get for being that team?
Some ping pong
nothing.
Ball. They get ping pong.
No, they don't. They're in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah,
they don't. They get nothing. They're not in the lottery at all. And so you have no incentive to be that team. The incentive is to tank or to go and win it all. And so teams like Portland, teams like Milwaukee, normally after Giannis leaves, they're not getting these free agents. You have to collect from the draft. But the problem is when you're a really good team, this isn't like the NFL where there's that much talent later on. You have to then hope you can build from free agency, or you're going to lose your star player and then tank to try and get another star player and then start over and build again, which never works. By incentivizing teams to get lottery draft picks, star players like Giannis, right? Who all of a sudden is going to work really hard to win those games because all of a sudden you're in the lottery and get a chance. You have teams like Portland when Dame was there that are going to work really hard to win. Let me finish.
Giannis plays hard all the time.
He does, but listen to me. Listen, Linda. You have players like it's a young person thing. You wouldn't understand. I mean, I'm too old to say that anymore, but it was from when I was a kid.
Okay, go on.
You made me lose my train of thought. Oh, you have teams. You really made me lose my train of thought now. No, you have. I want to finish this. I'm going to find it. Hold on. Okay. You have teams that are normally middle of the pack. Oh, that's what I was going to say. You have the Clippers, right, where Kawhi and Paul George sit all the time because they're older players, right? But now they have incentive to play in this tournament because it's going to make those teams better through the draft, and you have a better chance to win. It's also incentivizing star players to stay with the teams that drafted them. Because if you are constantly winning this in-season tournament, you are constantly getting put in the lottery with a chance to get a higher draft pick. And even if you don't, you're guaranteed top 14, right? Then all of a sudden, you're going to stay Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City, right? Giannis in Milwaukee because young talent is coming in because you won that tournament.
Okay, riddle me this, Batman. Say Indiana would have won this thing, and they would have gotten a lottery pick, or the Lakers get the lottery pick.
They would have gotten ping pong balls, yeah.
Fine. What incentive do they have to play? Their stars are still going to sit. They're going to get the lottery pick. The players don't really care about the lottery pick. That's a front office. They want to get a good player. Don't get me wrong.
The star players do. You're right. The 14th man on the bench doesn't care at all. But the star players care a lot.
Kawhi Leonard, Chris Paul, they're at the end of their career. If they would have won that tournament, they're going to take off if they're going to be in the playoffs.
Really? Because Kawhi and Paul George sure played.
If they're going to be in an automatic bid in the playoffs, what incentive do you have them to keep playing
You have
hard?
the rest of the season. I agree with you with the automatic bid because it takes away from the end of it. That was something that was thrown out. That wasn't my idea. Because it doesn't give them incentive to play. They have an automatic bid.
Right.
I agree with you there. What I am saying is what incentivizes these stars to play in this tournament and what makes it more interesting for fans, especially
for fans,
is
yes.
all of a sudden, and that's what this is all about.
I know, but
it's all about fan viewership and raising it up. If all of a sudden you're the Milwaukee Bucks or the Los Angeles Lakers, you guys are going for the finals. It's make or break for the finals. But now you can win this in-season tournament, and all of a sudden, not only are you excited to win the tournament, but now you're excited for the draft ping pong ball night because you may actually get a top 5 pick to make your team better. You're incentivizing stars to win. You're bringing in fans where it's exciting.
If I'm Adam Silver and it's my job to raise up the entire league, I'm not going to do this.
Your job is not to raise up the entire league. That changed when the last commissioner made it more about the name on the back than the name on the front. David Stern, thank you. You finally remembered something for me. I appreciate it. I'm glad we're back on the same wavelength. But hear me out, though. You're going to bring in fan interest because it's about the stars in this game, right? Nobody cares about the Bucks. Everybody cares about Giannis. The only difference is the Celtics and the Lakers. People care a lot about the Celtics and the Lakers. Nobody cares about the Portland Trailblazers. They cared about Dame Lillard, right? But if all of a sudden you have these stars now fighting for these, why do people? Let me rephrase it this way: why do people watch the NFL draft as much as they do?
Because they want to see what their team is going to get.
Why?
Because they want to see their team get better.
But what does the NFL draft do that makes the teams better? Especially in the first round. The first round of the NFL draft is the most watched draft moment in history.
Because there are usually 30 players. Every pick is going to affect the team, should be positively.
Right.
Unless you're Gutekunst.
He had really good first round draft picks. He really did. But people watch to the end of the first round because you're going to see what's going to make these teams better. First
thing I said.
Correct. I'm just rephrasing your brilliant point. That was a brilliant point.
I
appreciate it.
Go on.
When do people turn off the NBA draft?
Do they even turn it on?
After
the first couple picks.
Normally after the first couple picks or after the first 10. If you are telling me the Milwaukee Bucks just win the world championship and all of a sudden they have the 10th pick in the draft, more people aren't going to watch to see who the Bucks draft.
Well, if they're a lottery team, it's going to be one of the first 8.
It's top 14.
Well, yeah.
It's top 14. You could be 14th. You could be whatever. You're going to get ping pong balls to be someplace.
To really have an impact in the lottery, you want to be in the top 8 picks.
Right, you do. But say they have the 8th pick, right? You're telling me people aren't going to tune in to see who the Bucks get, or to see if the Bucks trade that pick for another star to make their team better, and then have another chance to win the in-season tournament and do that again. You're incentivizing teams to win. It is the number one incentive for teams to win. Okay. Because the number one incentive for teams to lose is to give up is to get high in the draft. Okay. If you're telling me I can win and get a high draft pick, now all of a sudden teams are going to tank.
Here's my question. How strong is your league if you have to do these kind of things to get interest?
It's not. So you have to draw interest any way you can. And this draws interest for stars to get more stars on a team and win. Is it good for Giannis to lose in the first round of the playoffs? No, it's not. You need to give him wingmen, which is why Dame Lillard coming to town is so important. Is it fun to not see LeBron James fighting for the finals? It's not. You tune in when LeBron James is in the finals. Is it exciting to see the Boston Celtics with Jason Tatum to be out in the second round? No, people hate it. So therefore, if you give incentive for this in-season tournament, you're going to make those teams better to get them closer to the finals. And if that team wins the in-season tournament 4 years in a row, shame on the rest of the league for not getting better.
Let's ask the people watching what they think.
You let us know why I'm right in the comments below. And while you're down there, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. Guys, I am solving the problems here. You can't argue with my point. You can't. It's a brilliant idea. Whatever. Let me tell you, folks, it is the season to be jolly.
Tis?
Tis is twas.
What does that mean?
It means tis. I don't know. It's is with a T. I'm not British, but I enjoy the way they speak. That's for sure. So it is a season to be jolly, but it also tis the season for the NIL.
In other words, college football free agency.
Once again, to ruin the sacred endeavor that was college football.
You were one of the ones that was in favor of paying players.
Correct. I did not anticipate it to turn into this. I was 100% game on Johnny Manziel not having to hide the fact that he's getting paid. I'm 100% game on the running back from Ohio State. Wow, I can't believe I forgot his name. But he leaves because he gets a car.
Reggie Bush.
I'm game on Reggie Bush getting paid at USC, or I'm struggling today.
Yeah, I don't want Reggie Bush to get paid, but I don't want him to be penalized.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Look,
college sign deals. Tim Tebow signing deals with Gatorade. There's nothing wrong with that.
Colleges, but that you're creating the exact problem we have. Colleges are there not only for the football team, even though the football team drives every other sport. It's about all the athletes that are going through there, and a typical swimmer at University of Wisconsin is not going to get any money.
Well, see, that was my argument for the NIL. What I hated was that you have these Olympic swimmers, like Missy Franklin is
Right.
always my prime example. She either could have cashed in because she was 15 and won gold medals, or she had to say no so she could get her full ride to Stanford. And guess what happened? She went to Stanford, got hurt, and was never the same swimmer again. So I never liked the fact that these Olympic swimmers couldn't cash in and still go to college. That was my point of the NIL. It bothered me a lot.
Sure.
It was these college football players and college basketball players shouldn't have to hide. These star players get paid. What I never anticipated it to be, and what I hate that it is it's a recruiting tool and it's a transfer portal tool. And and you have kids now that aren't staying where they are to earn their spots.
The Duke quarterback is going to Notre Dame next year for the third year in a row. Notre Dame's going to have a transfer portal QB.
Right. There's no point to go to Notre Dame as a recruit for a quarterback. They're just going to bring somebody in to replace.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no college or high school kids. I'm sorry, high school recruits are down by a huge margin from these large schools. Colorado's bringing in 5 high school students. You have the University of Wisconsin. There's down. Ohio State's barely bringing in high school students. Florida State's barely bringing in high school students.
Speaking of Wisconsin, here's another problem with that NIL has created. Now Wisconsin's got a recruit, a 3-star backfield recruit, and Miami's coming in trying to lure that recruit that's already committed to Wisconsin to go down to Miami, all with money.
Right. I don't like that it's a recruiting tool. They changed the transfer portal, and so kids could transfer once and play right away, which, by the way, is clearly becoming more than once. But you can transfer once. The only time I think a transfer should truly be allowed is either by injury and the school releases you for whatever reason, or if the coach leaves.
Right.
If your coach leaves, you should be able to transfer and not have to sit. That's why I hated what Kirby Smart did in Georgia. He didn't let any of those kids go to the schools of their choosing and just made them sit and made them suffer for no reason.
Or you can have a coach being vindictive, like Bo Ryan was.
Correct.
For a basketball player.
Bo Ryan, head coach of Wisconsin.
The former head coach.
Didn't allow a kid to go to any of the schools he chose to go to. Right. And instead ended up having to go to some like D2 school almost.
It was ridiculous.
Just to get out of Wisconsin. But I never expected it to be like, hey, we're going to pay you a lot to come to this school. I hate this.
Well, and this is why I think you're going to see football specifically and maybe basketball breaking away from the NCAA and redoing the NIL. It's the only chance they have to rewrite the rules for this. The NCAA completely screwed the pooch on this.
I didn't see this coming. I really don't. It was in courts, and they still refused to make things happen. It was legal in California and then quickly spread to the rest of the leagues. I don't know how you fix it at this point. Like you said, unless they leave.
Well, and they go and they make their own league. Football's a separate entity, right? And they rewrite the rules with the head of the SEC, the head of the Big Ten, and the head of the Big 12, and saying, okay, these are what we're going to do for transfer kids.
Well, when I was growing up, it was always, okay, Ohio State's got Craig Krenzel starting, right? But so-and-so is right behind him. And this is the kid
they would
that's going to take over.
Players because they were Alabama did the same thing. They had their 4th-string player is better than a 1st-string player on a Northwestern or Minnesota or Wisconsin.
And so you'd have these players ready to go. These kids had to earn their spot, and you'd see the best of the competition come out of them because you really had to compete to win if that's where you chose to go. Now, well, I didn't start this year, so I'm going to go play someplace else. We're going to promise me to start. Oh, well, this didn't go the way I wanted to, so I'm going to go someplace else to see if it goes better that way. You have the kid from Liberty who leads Liberty to 12-0. Well, all he wanted to do was go someplace where he could play, and now he's transferring to a bigger school to raise his draft stock.
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow is different because
he had to get out of Ohio State because of
they chose Dwayne Haskins over him. Urban Meyer didn't let him start. He wasn't his type of quarterback for whatever reason. I like the Joe Burrow transfer, but Joe Burrow transferred and sat for a year and then played.
That was the old rules, and I think it was a good rule, and that's why I brought it up.
It made you
If you're going to transfer out, you better be damn sure this is really what you want to do. Right. And when you go to the other place, you're staying there. Right. As you said, now we're seeing guys go, well, I'll go here this year, and I'll go here because they're going to pay me more next year, and it's a money grab constantly.
It is, and I don't blame the kids for doing it at all.
But agents are involved now.
They're starting to get involved.
Agents they've been behind this from the jump.
Yeah, and guys were always getting paid to go places. Let's not pretend that they weren't, right? I mean, I saw people get paid in Madison. People were paid to go to Ohio State and Florida and
Alabama
Texas and Alabama. Like this has been going on for a long time. USC.
The boosters have a lot of money and a lot of influence.
Correct. I mean, Herm Edwards got fired for some booster issues, right? I mean, it was happening all over the place, and somebody would get caught, it would become a big deal, and then it would get buried again. So you've had this for a long time. But the issue with this is, again, it's these kids are just entering the transfer portal over and over and over again to try and get paid more money, to try to raise their draft stock, rather than going to college just to go and play college football.
And it's taken away from the bowl season as well.
Nobody plays in the bowls anymore.
Well, no, they don't. Except in the Final Four, they'll play.
Right.
And even then, sometimes they won't. But it's the bowl season. I like the bowls overall. They're fun games to watch. Your school gets rewarded for being
There should be
mediocre.
a lot less bowls.
Not arguing that.
The bowl season used to start December 28th, and you'd have like one bowl game December 28th. You'd have some December 30th, and then you'd have the January 1st bowls, and then you'd have the championship.
I remember when Wisconsin back in 1985, and the only reason I remember this is right before I had to have back surgery, so I'm watching in the hospital. It was the first time they had made a bowl in forever.
Yeah.
Dave McClain was the coach. They were playing in Shreveport, Louisiana, whatever bowl that was. And they were excited to be there. But again, the game was like December 28th.
Right.
Now, I think the bowls start next week.
Yeah, they do. They do. I actually think there's one Thursday night.
No thanks.
Yeah. It's not good. You have New York bowls where it's snowing. Like, I mean, what are we doing?
Pinstripe bowl.
Yeah, like, what are you doing? I mean, these are getting to be ridiculous. But hey, you know what? That's the least of my worries. But this is getting to a point where, like Ohio State, right? Kyle McCord transfers out, right? It used to be, well, you had,
he was forced out.
He was very much forced out. I'm not super sad about it. Don't get me wrong. But normally he'd stay there. He'd have to fight. He'd have to get better. You'd see how he could go the next year. And now it's not even watching the guy that's behind him. Like it is, this guy's who's sitting behind him is going to start this bowl game, and then you're never going to hear his name again.
Right.
They're going to bring in that kid from Oklahoma. Or if Clint Ewers comes back, you're going to see Arch Manning come to Ohio State. You know, who knows? You're going to see a different quarterback in there that is not on that team. So there's no point to pay attention to who you have on your roster, because the next year it's going to be completely different. These guys change their rosters more than NFL teams change their rosters.
And again, I think this is why and we'll wrap it up here. When all is said and done, football has to break off from the NCAA and do their own thing to rewrite this rule so that this kind of thing stops happening.
It's getting ugly. It's getting pathetic. You're seeing these guys not finish with their teams. This used to be, let's not forget what made college football popular. It was a state pride. You'd have your state school go against their state school with your state players versus their state players. I watched a documentary probably about a month ago now on Arkansas, where Jerry Jones and
Jimmy
Johnson were on that team and won the national championship. Those were all Arkansas boys that were a lot smaller than anybody they were facing. Who did they go up against? Michigan, I think, in the bowl game. And they had to win that game to win the national championship because USC had lost already. And they were fighting. It was Texas. That's who they were playing against, was Texas. They lost to Texas, or beat Texas, and then Texas ended up losing, and that launched them in the national championship. Anyway, you had these in-state guys who were much smaller than anybody from Michigan.
Sure.
They're playing for this pride. There was no promise of the NFL. There was no anything. This was their life, right? This was their championship. This was the thing that a lot of those guys were going to enjoy for the rest of their lives and ride off into the sunset. There was so much pride. They still get together and remember each other's names.
Okay.
And it's beautiful.
The problem, though, is now you have kids that are 8 and 9 years old who are being told, choose your sport.
Right.
It never used to be that way. I played.
Well, and that's another issue. I'm just talking about college football.
I know.
Wisconsin might have sucked, but that's just because the football players in Wisconsin sucked. Or you got some recruits from someplace else, which was fine, but it was about playing for the state. And now it's not that. Now it's who else can you bring in? It has nothing to do with your roster. Nobody's building chemistry.
It's all about betting
again too, which is just sad. But again, you let us know what you think in the comments below, and while you're down there, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it.
So last week in the NFL picks, somehow we both ended up 3-2 again.
Yeah, because you picked back.
I should have been 4-1.
No, you could have picked the Giants, and
I would have
the Packers would have won that game.
Okay. I'm still not buying into that logic.
Really?
Although the evidence is
Let's go back to the game after the Lions.
Let's not do that again. We're going to start off Week 15 picks with probably my favorite game of the week, Broncos at the Lions.
Well, you have a Lions team that is...
Reeling?
You are seeing why the Rams decided Jared Goff was not their quarterback anymore. People forget this is what he was like his last season in the second half with the Rams, where they said, no more. We're not doing this anymore. This is the Jared Goff they had. And you have a Broncos team where Russell Wilson is all of a sudden starting to look like he's a quarterback.
Sean Payton's got him on the same page.
He does. It took some time, but they are getting there now. The Lions will win the NFC North. That's going to happen. They will be the 3 seed. That is going to happen just because nobody in the NFC North is going to touch them. And the NFC South is not going to win any more games.
The Lions are limping across the finish line.
They 100% are, and they need to figure out soon. They have 4 games to do it. The Broncos are fighting for their playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The Broncos have more to play for than the Lions do. And the game is in Detroit.
Yeah, it is.
I think that the Broncos are going to come into Detroit and win this one. I think the Broncos win the game.
I do too. I think Broncos are going to... I think the Lions are just... They're one of those teams that peaked way too early. And how many times have we said on the show that the season starts at Thanksgiving? We aren't the only ones to say that. A lot of people do.
Yep.
But it's really evident this year that the Lions peaked way too early. And they've got to figure it out.
Fortunate wins. Don't forget their big win against the Chiefs to start the season. They were missing their top defensive weapon and their top offensive weapon.
They should be getting better now. And I think Sean Payton's got Russell Wilson's buy-in now.
Yeah.
He's playing much better. He's brought Seattle's offense that got them to the Super Bowl into Denver. And he's having Russell Wilson do the same type of thing.
It's going to get interesting. I hope the Lions turn it around, but I do take the Broncos in this one. My pick for this one is another game with playoff implications. Both in the playoffs right now as wild cards, but this could knock one of them out. You have the Steelers at the Colts.
This is a battle of who cares.
It's two playoff teams.
I know it's 2 playoff teams, but there's no excitement around it. The Steelers have been unexciting, to say the least, all year. The Colts have looked exciting somewhat with Minshew as their quarterback after Richardson went down. They've been playing better. Jonathan Taylor is going to be a game-time decision, but looks like it's leaning towards he's going to play. I just don't trust the Steelers. I'm going to take the Colts in this one.
I don't know how the Steelers are 7-6. I have no idea how they've won some games. It doesn't make sense to me. The Steelers are a team that should be a 2-win team.
Right.
They should be fighting for the number 1 overall pick this year, which would get them a quarterback that has, football-sized hands.
Tomlin is willing them across the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, Whopper Jr. is not playing this year or playing this game,
right.
But, I mean, who do you have? Mitch Trubisky, who really probably has no business starting games. Gardner Minshew is fun to watch. He is, and he has the heart of that team right now. I'm with you. The Colts are going to not only win this game, but I think win this game by a lot of points.
All right, next one up. Teams that are going, I can't believe the Bengals are as good as they are, but we got the Vikings going to Cincinnati to play the Bengals on a cold
Dobbs
day.
is not starting.
No, he's not.
Nick Mullins is starting this game for the Vikings, and let me tell you, Nick Mullins looked pretty damn good in that final drive of the game. Josh Dobbs has proven why he's a backup quarterback.
Right.
Josh Dobbs may have actually hurt the trajectory of his career with the last couple games he's had. I don't know how he went from being as good as he looked in the first 2 appearances to looking, basically being a quarterback that has the lowest scoring game
in the history
of the NFL for indoor games.
I think Dobbs came in and surprised everybody when they got a little tape on him. They knew how to defend him.
Yeah. But they knew from the Cardinals too, and he still lit it up. I mean, it's crazy to me, the drop up of that. The Bengals are fighting for more right now. The Vikings defense is not as good as they look. Like we talked about earlier in the show, this is all Brian Flores.
Right.
They really don't have the talent to support the way the defense has been playing. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to win this game.
All right. I'd like to take the Vikings. But number one, it's outdoors. Indoor teams don't usually go to Cincinnati and look real good. Bengals still have more talent up and down the roster. I'm taking the Bengals.
We're 3 for 3 on picks right now. I think this one's where we're going to differ. The Cowboys at the Bills.
This is, I made the prediction earlier this year, the Bills are not making the playoffs. I think this is the game that knocks them out because I think the Cowboys are playing some of the best ball of the season. We've talked about Mike McCarthy earlier in the show. He's on the same page with Dak Prescott. They are a well-oiled machine right now. Dan Quinn's got their defense playing very well. Cowboys go in and handle Buffalo.
This isn't a lot of fun when you and I are picking exactly the same on all the games because the Bills, I agree, are going to be knocked out of the playoffs right here. Dak Prescott is the MVP after the way he played against the Eagles. Mike McCarthy has them all fired up. The Cowboys are going to go in and roll in Buffalo.
And finally,
you have one choice.
Buccaneers at the Packers. Go.
I don't know if I trust you right now.
Make your pick. Give the reasons.
This is Lambeau Field. They played really good. This was a blip in Jordan Love's career this last Monday night. This was simply a blip. The game, for whatever reason, got in his head, and you could see it. It was good for him because he is now going to settle down. He is now going to come into his own. He is now going to tell his coach to shut up and call his own. He's going to call his own plays and hopefully audibles out of every reverse that Matt LaFleur tries to call.
He should be calling the game on the field.
He should. Rashawn Gary and Quay Walker is hopefully not going to listen to their defensive coordinator, and our own players are going to run this game. But this is against the Buccaneers, man. The Buccaneers are nothing. The Packers are going to win this game.
Buccaneers are still playing for a playoff position.
Might make me happy right now.
The Packers look so bad that I actually think that LaFleur is not going to manage the game well. It's going to be another Tampa Bay when it was Brady and Rodgers, a game the Packers should have won, and Tampa found a way to win. Tampa's coming into Green Bay and it's going to win.
I'm so happy right now. That means the Packers are going to win, guys.
And I actually do think Tampa Bay is going to win. That's not
great.
Just for you.
The more you think, the better. That means the Packers are going to win. This is great.
Stop it.
You did the right thing. I rely on you.
I'm rooting for the Packers.
Of course you are. No, it's okay. Feel it in your heart, please, that the Packers are going to lose this game. That's what I need. That's what the world needs, is in the Packers win the game. It's a beautiful thing.
Okay.
Thank you. That's the only game we differed.
It is.
So I'm going to go 5-0, and you're going to go 4-1 because you picked against it. This is why I love you.
Unless other teams.
Well, we could also end up being really, really bad. It's going to get interesting, but it is that time, folks, that you are all aware of because when you have a conversation with your dad, it is your father that gets the last word. So it is all you.
Okay, so I am officially a year older. I've always loved history, and I've studied history my whole life. Back in 1948, Winston Churchill, in a famous speech, and I don't know if he was the original person to say this or not, but those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. And we're seeing that now. We're hearing people on the streets of the United States of America calling for genocide against somebody of a different faith. And you have the leaders, the morons who are heading up some of our biggest schools like Harvard and the University of Pennsylvania, go in front of Congress and saying it's okay because they can say they're going to commit genocide, but until they actually do it, we're not going to hold them responsible. I feel like I'm in 1930s Germany. My God. The Jews have as much right on this planet as Muslims and Christians. Genocide should never be called for. The students that are on the streets marching right now, calling for Jews to be eradicated from this earth, should, number one, stop being cowards and uncover your face. And number two, they should be called out and their careers should be ruined because this is just ridiculous. The United States has always been Israel's best friend. Israel needs to go in and they've got to get rid of Hamas because they're just going to keep bombing them and trying to push them into the sea. But to hear somebody in the United States calling for genocide against a different religion, I never thought I'd hear this in our country. And again, we cannot turn into 1930s Germany because we're right on the edge right now. That's it.
You know how I know that you're being honest about the
Because I'm pounding the table?
No, because you were there in the 1930s.
Shut up. No, I wasn't, and I wouldn't be here if I was. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because my views would be in, the first one they attacked.
Yeah, probably.
We do not want to ever see Crystal Knock again. And if you don't know what Crystal Knock is, that was when the brown shirts went and destroyed Jewish businesses, dragged them out, and the beginning of the Holocaust.
I don't normally take a side on these things, but I heard it put brilliantly. Hamas wants to eradicate Israel, and Israel simply won't let them.
Yeah.
And that's what we're dealing with now.
I heard Rich Eisen go off on this the other day, and he's exactly right. He walked off the set when he was done. He was so angry about this.
Yes.
And good for him for doing that.
I agree. Well, and the puppy's here, which means it is time for us to end the show. Thank you so much for always as watching. This has been Sports Talk with Dad. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.